What's up, guys? Good to see you all. What's up, Kevin Wise? Good to see you always earlier in chat. I'm going to talk through what I'm doing on this slate, and I really feel like it's really spread out today in terms of what you want to do. I did lose a little bit of interest in my Atlanta, even though the thing is I still do like Atlanta. I think they're going to be the most popular. At the same time, I don't know. Without Acuna, that lineup isn't nearly as good as it is with. But you do get some other guys like Michael Harris batting at the top of the order. You have some other cheap options. You could use Swanson in a wraparound. I'm sorry, not Swanson. You could use Swanson anyway. But you could use Grossman in a wraparound. But I've got the team that's starting this. So I've got Milwaukee, the Yankees, Atlanta as my main, which is what I talked about earlier. But now that I'm going back to it, the team that I can get the most off the board with and feel really good about it, which again, I think you're going to be able to get off the board more in these stacks than you think you are. I think Milwaukee, Atlanta end up as the most popular. I think parts of Oakland will have some ownership. I think parts of the Yankees will have some ownership. I don't know if you're going to be able to fully stack them. So in my 5 big lineups, I have one Dodger stack, but I have it, complemented by a stack that I really like in the a mini stack of the A's. I like the A's as a mini stack for fillers. I have 2 Atlantas, 1 4-man, 1 5-man. I've got 3 Seattle 3-man and 2 Seattle 3-man and 1 Seattle 4-man. I do like Seattle quite a bit today. I'm just trying to double check everything else that I've got here. I mentioned the what's it called as fillers. I also like a little mini stack from Minnesota, but they're mostly going to be surrounding my main 3 stacks, which are still Milwaukee, New York, and Atlanta. But I think there's ways you can stack those teams now to not be too worried about the chalk, especially on this size of a slate. And double-digit ownership, while that seems like it stands out on this size slate, it's not so crazy to where I'm just going to avoid some of these other spots that I already like. So Seattle's probably my favorite to go with if you want to make a stack that I don't think anybody's really playing that much. I do think Seattle is one of the best options, and that is probably what I'm going to end up with more than I have right now. I also think that Minnesota is very viable in that same vein. Not as interested in Houston with Alvarez out and the lineup they put out, but I do like I don't mind if you want to take a few pieces from there. I don't mind. I think that Milwaukee's going to be higher owned than they're projected to be, but I don't mind using them. And there's a lot of different ways you could use them. There's a lot of different parts of that stack that I think people are going to have a harder time getting to. Like the Renfroe will be lower owned than the other guys. McCutchen will definitely be low owned, I think, compared to the others. Hira will have a little bit of ownership at first base, probably not as much as maybe you would have thought. So that's something that I think is worth doing, and just there's ways to do it to get different. The pitching for me is going to be a rotation of. So I've got 2 Aaron Nolas out of my 5 biggest buy-in lineups. I've got 2 Gausman, 2 Kirby. I went with one I'll play down in one spot, and I'll play Giolito and Taillon in one lineup together. I don't feel amazing about it, but I do think that Giolito is viable enough. In some of my secondary lineups, I do have a Giolito Kirby, that kind of thing. But Gausman, Nola, and Kirby are my 3 favorites, followed by Snell and Giolito and Fried. So those guys I have all bunched up in sort of a similar area. We have to worry a little bit about the weather in Oakland and the weather in New York. There's some rain concerns, so we'll see about that. It's not about the Oakland guys I like, Kevin. It's more just the pricing. Tony Kemp is in a great stolen base spot. Seth Brown is so cheap and has power upside. If you want to use a real player, Sean Murphy is the best hitter. But I think that, those 3 guys, and then if you have to fill in like a Mashin for minimum cost or a Jonah Bride for minimum cost, there is some stolen base upside in that one. One team I didn't mention was the Pirates, and I'm kind of regretting not having a Pirates stack. It's probably something I'm going to do, but probably not in my biggest buy-ins. I do like them, though, for what that's worth. Is a 5-3 stack crazy? No, that's the chalk. That's the standard. That's what most people are going to do almost every time. So 5-3 is never crazy. On a 4-game slate, I think it's kind of weird to do, but on a full slate, no, it's not weird. One-offs in KC and Chicago, I can totally support it. Giolito gets hit hard sometimes. Singer has given up absolutely nothing lately that's made me have a reason to try to stack against him. The White Sox are terrible offensively against righties, one of the worst teams in baseball. So I actually think the pitching is a little more interesting than the hitting, but I certainly don't mind if you want to do some of the White Sox business, or as the White Sox or Royals. I prefer the Royals a little bit more if I'm going to do that. But yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of stacks today that could get there that I'm not, focused on. Doesn't mean that they're not good, just means that there's a lot of stacks that rate out very similarly today. So I'm trying to do it based on ownership, power upside, and that sort of thing. And Oakland just is so cheap for their run total. Even it's hard not to have some interest in them, at least as fillers, if nothing else. I don't mind a full stack, but I don't even like full stacking against Fetty with good teams because he keeps the ball on the ground so much. So it's kind of hard for me to just decide, okay, well, I'm going to play Oakland now because it just doesn't make any sense to try to make the full 5-man for me. But I definitely can get behind a 3-man, even a 4-man. You're counting on the rest of your lineup to do it. But if you're going to do a 4-man, I would do it with a 4-man stack that you think can really produce some power, because Oakland just doesn't have the power. But again, I went through my pitchers, so just going quickly through positions. Catchers: D'Arnaud, Caratini, Vogt, Trevino, and Contreras. First baseman: Olsen, France, Santana are my favorites. I do like Hira a little bit as well. Second base, spending down a lot. Castro, Colton Wong, Vaughn Grissom in Atlanta stacks. Muncy, I don't mind as a one-off or as a part of Dodger stacks. Third base, I have a few. I like Josh Donaldson, Urshela. Peterson is the cheap option you can kind of use with the Brewers stack. Shortstop, Turner, if you can afford him. Swanson would be next. Swanson and Adames would be next. And then I have some Correa and Pena. Pena's a little bit cheap, batting second today for Houston, so I like that play. Outfielders: Michael Harris, one of the preferred options now on the slate. If I could redo my core right now, that would be one of them. Love Haniger. I love this whole Seattle outfield, Rodriguez and Winker. I also love the outfield from Milwaukee, Renfroe. Renfroe. Sorry, why am I losing my train of thought? Yelich and McCutchen. And then I also like, I think Joey Gallo, again, part of Dodger stacks, are on his own, and Mookie Betts is red hot right now. I would take some shots with Mookie Betts. He's homered in his 4 homers his last 3 games. He's homered in all 3 of them. And if he gets hot, man, we've seen him go on these crazy tears before. So that's where I'm at right now. Pop in your questions, pop in your thoughts. We'll get out of here probably. We've got at least 12 more minutes. So let's do it. Drop on in some thoughts, some questions, some anything. I'm ready to answer. All right, what else have we got here tonight on this big slate? Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of questions or thoughts coming in, but do fire them in when you get a chance. I don't know. I can go. Otherwise, I'm just going to be regurgitating the same information. Again, pitching for me: Nola, Gaussman, Kirby as my favorites. Some Giolito, Snell, and Fried. And then I am using one Jameson tie-in lineup just to do a double spend down and allow me to spend up, hoping the top pitchers don't put up 30 plus. And even if they do, tie-in could still put up 20 against this A's team. Correa and Urshela are not my favorites. My favorites are Max Kepler and Gordon, assuming that he's in the lineup. I didn't see the lineup. It may have come out while I was just getting on air. We do have the lineup out. Gordon, yeah, 5th. Kepler. I would go Gordon, Kepler, Miranda, then Correa, Urshela for me. And then you could include Cave if you want to make a full stack. I think it's fine to make a full stack of the Twins today. I just don't have the full stacks. Mostly I'm doing the smaller thing. 3 from the Twins is more where I'm at. Sometimes it's just 2 from the Twins for me. Kepler and Gordon allow you to spend down. But I do have a little bit of Correa and a little bit of Urshela as well. Not the most exciting thing. It's a little worth noting. Urshela actually has decent power numbers versus righties this year, so don't mind the idea of taking him as a cheap option at third base. I think that's fine, David. I think that's a little bit. You got to worry a little bit about being chalky with doing that, but that's okay. It's probably decent enough. Favorite Dodger stack players are Betts, Turner, Gallo, and Muncy. Everybody else is in play for me, but those are my 4 favorites. And then you can always pick any of the other ones to round out the stack. I think that's totally fine. I would encourage you to consider at least. Let me just see if they changed his price at all. If you're going to make a Dodgers stack, the guy who did all the damage last time I tried to stack the Dodgers in one of these spots, Austin Barnes, has a little more power than he gets credit for. He's homered in 2 of his last 4 games, and you could throw him into a Dodger stack as a cheap option. So, but again, it's mostly going to be the big boys for me, and it's easier on FanDuel than it is the on DraftKings to do. But again, the Dodgers, it's weird because I've pointed this out about Walker so many times this year, and he's mostly given up like very little power. He gave up a home run in the last game. He gave up. He had that one stretch where he had 3 games in a row where he gave up 2, 1, and 2. Other than that, he had gone like, the huge majority of his starts, he hasn't given up any home runs, and I still think there's a chance for the Dodgers to get to him. I don't think he's nearly as bad as people think, but the Dodgers, in a day where they're not going to be owned, are always really interesting to me. And I think that with the wind blowing out in New York, it's certainly viable. So that's what I'm doing. And again, I still do want to check on the weather before I make my final decisions, because if there's anything questionable, even I'm just likely to go elsewhere when you don't need to maybe do all that. But I like the idea of the Pittsburgh as a contrarian one. But my favorite is Seattle. Pittsburgh would be my other one. I think you play Cruz, Reynolds, Hayes, Gamble, Castro, and you've got a pretty cheap stack right there. Or you could throw Chavis in. You could throw Marcano in instead, or Sawinski. And or if you want to play the cheap catcher Jason DeLay, you can use him as a minimum cost guy. So all the Pirates actually fit. Okay, I would just suggest if you're going to stack them, make sure you get at least the top 2 guys and probably Hayes as well. Jimenez is worthy as a one-off the same way everybody at that price is worthy as a one-off. Is he a better play than Michael Harris? No. Is he a better play than Winker? And Haniger's a little bit more expensive. Renfroe, Alvarez, McCutcheon. I'd rather all those guys than Jimenez, but of course he's viable as a one-off. He's always viable as a one-off. There's no such thing as no hitter is not viable as a one-off that has any power whatsoever. You just in general don't want to try to use the guys who don't have any power or speed upside. At least with Tony Kemp or something like that, you've got the stolen base upside in a good stolen base matchup. So that's what I'd say about that. Pop on in any other thoughts or questions. Again, as I always wanted to tell everybody, it's never wrong to use any player as a specific player as a one-off. I'm always interested in the way people go about deciding what those players are. And yesterday I wasn't wrong. It just happens. Rengifo hit a home run. He still didn't put up as many points as Alec Baum, who is, I believe, 100 more at third base. But still, that's just what happens sometimes. Sometimes, guys are going to hit home runs. It's baseball. There's insane variance. There's no answer better or worse. There's what do you prefer? That's the thing about baseball. Baseball has the least amount of skill of any of the DFS sports by a long shot, and the most amount of knowledge being beneficial. It's a weird thing to say, but like really knowing, all 400 players in the league is valuable. But when you're starting to talk about anybody is not that much better. Nobody's that much better than whoever you think the best hitter in baseball is, Aaron Judge, on a given day versus Tony Kemp. Tony Kemp's still going to outscore him like 30% of the time. Like, you know what I mean? So it's always really, really hard to fine tune that one. But I don't think we don't have sheets today. We should have them back tomorrow, hopefully for live as well. And we should get all of our other stuff done along with it. Again, if you are going to play Atlanta, I do suggest if you're going to play the 5-man, trying to get a little bit off the board with a Robbie Grossman or something like that. Because I do think they're the one team, along with potentially Milwaukee, that you might be in trouble if you don't get a little bit different, just because so much of the field's going to have it. But the chalk has been freaking bizarrely hitting. It should never hit the way that it's been hitting. For hitting. For pitching, it should have hit better than it's been hitting. But I saw a lot of people complaining about playing all those other guys last night, whether it was Rodon or Burns. It didn't matter who you pitched last night. Nobody was doing anything. So that's pretty much, it. All right. So let's see what else we got here. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I'm doing that I haven't mentioned yet. If you want to get weird play, would be Zach Gallen. And Brady Singer would be my get weird pitchers. I also don't mind Valdez, but you'd probably want to double spend up if you're playing Valdez, just because I don't know if he outscores every other top pitcher enough here for him to be the best option. Again, though, going right back to a lot of the stuff that I liked, that some of it did hit, some of it didn't yesterday, with the Milwaukee, the Seattle, and Atlanta, but less so on Atlanta than I was to start. I like the Yankees, and then I want Oakland pieces. I do have a couple Toronto stacks on FanDuel. It's not my favorite thing to stack against their former pitcher there, in a guy who doesn't really, keeps the ball on the ground, and you have a bunch of ground ball hitters on like two hitters that are more fly ball heavy than ground ball heavy on Toronto. So it's a little bit scary to take a full stack on a full slate against a pitcher who doesn't get lit up in Stroman like that. Cabrera, Judge Stanton, I have no problem with that. With LeMay, no issue there. Totally on board with all that. I'm good with the Yanks tonight, and consequently, on the other side, that would be my other really get weird play, would be to play Mike Myers at 5,200. But again, I'm not going to actually be doing that, so I don't want to tout it too much because it's not my favorite thing. And same thing with like the Pirates. Not my favorite stack by any means. Just the matchup's good enough. Good hitters park. Good big stadium upgrade for them. And what will likely be almost a semi-ish bullpen game. But O'Neill Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes, those guys are all really interesting to me. But yeah, David, I don't mind any of what you just suggested. I think that's actually very, 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 very viable. And as popular as the Yankees are projected, which is not like crazy popular, I think every minute their lineup doesn't come out, the more people aren't going to play them unless somehow Cabrera was like leading off. If I had to pick my favorite Yankees, it would be Judge and Stanton, obviously, probably followed by, whoever's in the lineup. But it depends on who's in the lineup, obviously, but probably Donaldson, then either Torres or LeMahieu, with Trevino as my preferred way of stacking. But if you want a cheap shortstop on DraftKings, I think Cabrera is completely fine. All right, so I'm going to get out of here. It seems like the questions are dried up. Guys, good luck to everybody. Please click the like before you get out of here. We really appreciate it. Any other thoughts? I'll be in Discord. Please, generals chat. I do not so many people DM me like one-on-one. What do you think of this? What about this guy versus this guy? Just write that stuff in the general chat. Don't DM me about it, because you're way more likely to get a response if you write it in the general chat than if you DM me. Because I can't spend the whole day answering everybody's individual questions that I could just answer to the whole public, and that would be much better. And general questions like, what's the best three teams? Those are just not questions. What three teams do you like? Who are you playing? That's the way we do things over here. We're not going to be like the other sites where we just say the same thing over and over again and hope that it works for you. No, we're going to tell you who we're playing, and that's what works for us in general. Hasn't worked for me as well this month. This has been a rough August and what was a good baseball season up to this point. So, anyway, that's where I'm at. So, all right, guys, I appreciate all of you. Again, please like before you get out of here. If there's any more questions, I'm giving you guys one more minute to get them in, and then I'm going to bounce. Doesn't look like there's anything else. So I'm going to say, let's crush it tonight, and don't sleep on Seattle. That's all I'm saying. All right, good luck, everybody.